Hi, I'm Michelle Olivier, and you're listening to Hey, I Want Your Job, the podcast that looks at amazing jobs and what it takes to get them. Hi, and welcome to Hey, I Want Your Job. And today we have somebody who is an amazingly influential part of the Hey, I Want Your Job movement in the greater Austin area, the one and only founder of Austin Digital Jobs and so many other things as well, the fantastic Lani. So we're going to start with the ever-present first question. What is your actual job title?
I am the Chief Operating Officer at theamericangenius.com, which is a national news outlet for entrepreneurs and realtors. And we also have the Big Ass Social Happy Hour, which is an Austin event networking that is dead because of COVID. Thanks, COVID. Austin Digital Jobs, which is a Facebook group, which helps people in the tech ecosystem find each other. And now we have Remote Digital Jobs, another group that is national to help other people find those kind of jobs. So my title is COO, which is fancy talk in the entrepreneur world for a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
All the things.
Yeah. It's the other duties as assigned job. That's what that job is. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I really love the fact that I will double down on your plug for remote digital jobs, that there are so many groups on Facebook that are just like spam places, that it's not really remote jobs. It's people plugging MLMs or do nothing and make $8,000 a day. Like, obviously, like not real things. And that the remote digital jobs run by you is legit, with legit jobs that people could actually get a job and pay bills with. So anybody looking for those should really go and find that on Facebook. So that's your job title. And we've talked a little bit about what you actually do. So now I have to ask the really awkward question that we ask everybody. How do you answer when people ask you, how much do you make? And you don't have to give me a number.
I ask what year.
I think that's a great point, right? As an entrepreneur, the answer is it really depends.
Yeah, I'll give you a really honest answer. So in 2019, it was a very low six figure, which is still really good for an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
For 2020, like fucking zero.
Okay.
Like, no lie. So living off loans to keep the business open. I would go get a job at McDonald's flipping burgers if it meant that people still got paid here and still got to do what they do. And also entrepreneurs are helped by what we are talking about every day on the news site. So from six figures to zero, and I'm guessing 2021 will probably be somewhere in between the two. I'm guessing I'll personally probably hit around 75, which is I'm grateful for anything at this point.
Sure. You're not coming across as ungrateful, but I think that we all absolutely feel that. One of the things that I really love about the way that you have engaged with all of this is that even though you are this really public figure between, American Genius and Austin Digital Jobs and everything else you do, like, you have been really honest about the fact that 2020 has sucked and that it takes a huge emotional toll on people dealing with that suckage for as long as we have. And talk to me a little bit about that. Like, because you're so comfortable with it, has there been a moment where you felt like you couldn't be, or have you just always been that person and just always owned it? Or
no, I swing on a pendulum every day. Like, honestly, every day I wake up and I'm thinking, okay, good things are going to happen today. And then the day happens and it's like, well, shit. Okay. Today's going to be okay. And then by the end of the day, it's like, you know what, just, I'm done. Like, I'm done. So that's been kind of like a lot in 2020. And, my husband, who actually founded our company, his name is Ben. He told me something a long time ago. We met when I was 20. I'm now almost 40. And he said to me one day, he was hugging me and I just wanted to go be a little turtle and just like crawl back into my little shell. And he was like, you never have to do today again, ever. And I was like, that's true. Like, I can have other bad days, but I never have to do this specific brand of bullshit again. So like I tell myself that a lot, but the hardest part I think has been I'm an introvert and I've worked remotely for 12, 13 years now. And so this has not been a huge change for me overall, honestly. But what has been a change is not seeing my family and not seeing my inner circle of friends. And it turns out that I miss hugs. I didn't think that I would miss hugs, but I miss them so much. I miss seeing my nieces and nephews. And the biggest challenge, we did do layoffs very early last year because we saw it coming, and so that was hurtful to have, to go to skeleton crew just to survive. And as a job creator, that is always just that keeps you up at night, and
Yeah.
that doesn't feel good later. I mean, there are some people who just can do it and be fine, but not
Those
most.
people are monsters. And
Those are, and they're
and
typically
so
more in the corporate world anyways. But the other
yeah.
challenge has been, and we have financially supported several people in our family for a long time, and having to tell them, not only can we not do that for you and help in these ways anymore, we're struggling to do it ourselves. And so it's been very humbling, and I don't want to say embarrassing because it's kind of a universal experience.
Yeah.
We all have our different struggles, but it
You
has
haven't
been,
failed. The entire planet has failed. And
yeah,
so yeah, I get it. Yeah.
but being public, to go back to your question, kind of how do you maintain like a public persona when you're just kicked in the gut over and over again without just saying, you know what, I'm done with this. And it's because a lot of what we do really is, the truth of it is, the goal is to help other people to improve their business, to improve their odds at getting a job or whatever it is. So kind of the nexus of everything is to help others anyways. And we've always said that we would do this even if it made $0. And that's true. I mean, even if I have to go, like I said, flip burgers, whatever it takes, because we get enough feedback on a consistent basis of people showing us how they have been helped. And
Yeah.
so that's you just, for me, you just kind of have to. And I do try to be honest because I hate all of those like overly positive, like, you know what? Congrats that you inherited $80 million and you can just like float. I didn't. So like everything that is in this house is stuff that we have earned and we have bought ourselves. And so um, being real helps other people feel less isolated, makes me feel less
Yes.
isolated. And so it's kind of nice to be honest. And when you are honest, you hear other people's honest perspective in return. And
Yeah.
so then you also realize, okay, well, it's not just crap for me. It's kind of sucks for everybody.
I think there is kind of like a camaraderie of bullshit that was
Yeah.
2020, that like we were all so deep in all of the depression and everything else. I know for me, I am also a massive introvert. And my husband, this is my husband, and we both work in roles where we have to pretend to be extroverts, which is a massive, like, I know right now we're sisters in arms in this. Like, so, like that's already draining. But he and I had always, joked that like if it was up to us, it'd be like we'd live on a mountain and like we'd see no one but the goat, you know what I mean? For like ever. And then COVID came, and I guess it was about May, maybe June. And I looked around and I was like, I'm lonely. I didn't I didn't know that I could do that, but I missed hugs and I missed my nieces and nephews and I missed like my circle. And it was really hard for us as parents because we'd worked really hard to have a village so that when shit happened, we have a fleet of people that we can call and be like, hey, I'm going to kill my kid if he's here for another 24 hours. Why don't you make that not happen? And they would be all over it, right? But with COVID, that was not a thing. I know you're also a mom. So talk to me a little bit about how having a family and all that has factored into this for you.
Yes, this has been kind of a unique challenge for us because our youngest is in university. And so she lives in Oklahoma and she works in a hospital setting and she's studying to be a nurse. And so it's
Oh,
been
wow.
very scary. She's gotten COVID, she has her vaccine now, but it has been very scary to be kind of remote parenting as well, right? Of just being so far away and feeling so helpless because there's literally nothing we can do here. My husband's
Yeah.
immunocompromised, which is a big part of why we really did kind of have to go physically underground until at least the herd immunity exists, which we're still not even close to. And so, yeah, being a parent, I don't have the same experience as most parents where it's like they're in my face all the time and I can't work. I can still, if I want to work a 12-hour day, that's up to me, right? And nothing can really restrict that. But I would say my experience is a little bit different, and
Yeah.
I have the opposite. I don't get to see my child. I haven't seen my child since January of last year, and it is awful because she's one of my favorite humans on the planet, and I hate it. But that's what the pandemic has caused, and we have to live with it.
Yeah. Well, that is all awful. So let's change the topic to something slightly less awful. You're really funny. And I love that about you. And I think that's something that other people like about you too. Your writing is funny, and the way that you create those connections online is through humor, a lot of it. And that's great. I think I'm funny. Not everybody agrees, but I try. And I know in my career, sometimes that has been great and sometimes less great in some moments. How about you? Have you found that humor in general in your career is a positive, or do you find that sometimes you get yourself in more trouble than it's worth? How does it fit in?
Humor has, and thank you for saying I'm funny, because like that's a bigger compliment to me than thinking I'm smart. So like, thank you. That is amazing. So I actually use it to be disarming, and I always have. It's part of my personality, and so it has never really gotten me in trouble, because it is kind of inherent to who I am. Have I made people feel uncomfortable? Have I, maybe messed a deal up? Sure, whatever. But
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. But I had this amazing blessing to be involved in an organization. O'Reilly in California has a speaker series called Ignite. And Ignite is where a speaker goes on stage and they have 5 minutes to explain something random, or like it's typically like tech or science or something nerdy. And the slides advance behind you, whether you're on time or not. So you
Oh
have
wow.
5 minutes to do this thing, right? You design it as a speaker. So the very first year that it was in Austin, Josh Barrett Capital Factory wanted to do it, asked a handful of us if we wanted to help him with it. Turns out he and I, as always, are the only doers. And so he and I basically put it on together. And we were kind of missing some comedic relief. And it was all, I felt, too serious of an event, which it is a serious event. But
Sure.
so I volunteered to do the etymology of curse words. And
Nice.
what I didn't take into account was how big the stage was, because it's at a big venue. I think there were like almost 500 people packed in the room. It was huge, but the cuss words were like 30 feet tall behind me in black and white. And so I was tagged in so many Facebook pictures of like me up on stage, with like the word cunt behind me as big as you can get it. And like, it was so great. And that was, I want to say like 2009. So even like 3 or 4 years ago, I was with my daughter and my husband, and we were downtown during South by Southwest, and somebody yells from across the lobby, "It's the fuck girl." And I was like, are they talking about me or my kid or like somebody else? Or what is going on? Because I'm about to like be violent. And he's like, "I saw your speech on the cuss words." I was like, "Oh, could you not refer to me as that, especially in front of my kid?" Because she'd never heard of it. She didn't know I had done it. She hadn't seen it. And so,
She didn't know mom was internet famous for
no,
profanity.
no. And until she went to college, she didn't even know we cussed, which I am a prolific cusser. That too is part of my whole shtick. I just say what I want. But so that really was helpful, because if you Google me, that's one of the results. People kind of almost like expect it from me. And so if I'm super zipped up and buttoned up, people are like, "Are you okay? Like, is it funeral time?" And I'm like, "No, it's not funeral time. I just, whatever." So humor has been really instrumental, because I believe that it really, if done in a way that's not like too socially awkward, can typically help people feel more comfortable around you or in your
Hmm.
community or around your company. And so I've always used it as a really powerful tool. And it helps when I don't feel funny. I spend time with my family, especially my mom's family, because they're all like hyper speed funny. And I always feel really intimidated by that, because
Yeah.
they can do puns. Everything's funny. Like everything is always funny. And so if I can just like hang out with them a little bit, I can like
It
revamp
rubs off a little osmosis.
my
Sure.
funny vibes. I can like steal anything they say and just like use it, which I totally do all the time, no problem. But I love humor. It's the best. I actually am super uncomfortable when somebody gets bent out of shape or about a joke. I'm like, oh, we're not gonna work well
Yeah.
together. This isn't
And
meant to be.
I do the same with career coaching and that sort of thing. If I straight up tell people, I think I'm funny, and if you don't agree, I'm probably not the coach for you, because I'm just like, I'm going to say exactly what I think about that. And I also, I have to tell them, like, you're not paying me to be your friend. Also, disclaimer, I'm always honest, even with my friends. So I
Yeah.
am the girlfriend that says, yeah, your butt looks big in those jeans, but who cares?
Yeah.
And
So fun.
yeah. So, but so I totally hear where you're coming from. And I use humor to try it. And especially like when I'm coaching people on interviewing, if more interviewers cracked jokes, the world would be a way better place.
Yeah,
Like,
and more comfortable. But I would add that I use it definitely as part of like white girl privilege. No joke. I know that
oh
there
yeah,
are like certain personality types or the way certain people look where it would not come off.
yeah,
And especially in the South, I think there's still kind of an expectation subconsciously of like women to be a little bit more subservient to men. And so I typically will walk in a room, flop it out, make sure everybody knows that I'm not subservient, and then like we're off to the races. It's fine. And so, but I know that if I were like, an awkward Indian male or something, like
yeah,
it wouldn't come off the right way. So I do think there is a component of like using humor if it's like within the cultural boundaries, and that
yeah,
sucks. I take advantage of it.
sure. Well, and I think for me, I know my experience in work is that there is still a lot of pressure on women in business to be nice. And I
Yeah.
am not nice. I'm not good at that. I'm good at a lot of things. Nice is not on the list. And so the closest I can get to nice is funny. So like that's I try to mitigate that for me in that same kind of way that they're like, well, Olivier is very direct. Yeah, but she's funny. And I'm like, see,
It works.
like, I find it's a balance. It's a balance. And so that's a big part of how you build those connections, and you're in the business of connection building. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about how, because everything has changed with networking right now. We don't have conferences, we don't have events. There are people who are trying to change that online, but as you have said, it doesn't work. Nobody wants to go. I mean, there's some of it where it's increasing appetite, but it's hard and it's just not the same. So what are, from a kind of end user experience, so like the job seekers and that sort of thing, what do you see that they do wrong the most when they're trying to network and establish that professional community?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And this is kind of timeless, whether it's the COVID times or not. And I think people kind of play it like a numbers game too much, and that can come off as insincere. And I think
Mhm.
using either overly formal or overly familiar language, I see both of those kind of like get people ignored pretty easily.
Yeah.
And I think having too high of an expectation of return or even response rate. So, for example, if I am interested maybe in working in a specific field, but I don't really know yet, so I want to do just a couple informational interviews with people in that specific industry, I would, write a sentence or two brief script. Hey, I've researched to find a couple people to have 15-20 minute Zoom chat with regarding the industry. I'm looking to, you know, pivot my career into that direction. Would you be interested? Or, could I borrow some time?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like middle ground, right? And if I send 10 of those off, one or two are probably going to respond. You'll end up talking to one or two tops, right? But people will send this like book of like
Yes.
text of like almost defending why they deserve your time. And if you send that to me, you've already taken up too much of my time. I'm not reading past the first sentence or two. And that's a jerk thing to say, but it's true because I get the requests so often in such volume that I can't. And so Just make it quick, to the point. What is it? But don't email me and say, yo, what's up? Like, I mean, do
Hey,
that.
Lonnie, what's up, girl? Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not
if we
friends.
talked,
I don't know you.
that's fine. But we're not friends yet, so don't do that. And that's even saying as someone who is typically extremely informal,
Yeah.
but like, you know, read the room.
Yeah. I agree. And I feel like I would almost rather, I never have a problem on LinkedIn with people just like randomly adding me. I'm like, that's the whole point of this. Go on, add me. I don't need a note. I don't need to know your life story about why you feel like we should be like, it's fine. That's why we're all on this platform.
Yeah.
But I do, as soon as I get a lengthy anything in my message box on LinkedIn, I assume that they're trying to sell me something and that it is spam.
Yep.
So I absolutely agree that keep it short and to the point. I also think that your point that you accidentally made in answering my other question about the value and those informational meetings. I think people really underestimate that, and that just a lot of people I work with feel like, okay, and so then when do I ask them for a job? I'm like, you don't. You don't,
Yeah.
doofus. You just ask them, make sure that you understand the environment that you're applying to, that you really understand what this job is, because you think you know, but you've never walked a mile in those shoes. So
Yeah.
ask somebody and then just be appreciative of that knowledge. And I think that's really an undervalued thing to do in job searching as
Yeah.
well.
Well, and I think especially if it's an informational interview with a company in a role, like if it's a company that you know you want to work for. So let's say it's the IBM design team and you're in Austin and you are a UX researcher. They always have UX researchers in and out of their team. And you find somebody that's already on the team that you would be on and another UX researcher there. It would be appropriate to reach out to a couple and ask, hey, I think I'm going to apply for this role, but I really want to understand the culture first.
Mhm.
Many people will say yes. If you are one of those people that just, because I'm not like this, but some people are like deal closers and they have to leave a conversation with some
A
sort of
sale.
like closed deal.
Yeah.
It is appropriate to say, if it is a productive conversation, I think this might be a match. I might end up applying. Should I use your name on the application, or would it be okay just to apply? And because that's like saying, it's literally saying, can I use your name on the application? Well, they're probably going to get a referral fee. And if you have already impressed them or they're interested or you had a good vibe with them, they're going to say yes. Otherwise, you've already asked them, as an alternative or not without saying or not, right? So,
Yeah.
is it okay should I use your name on the application, or would it be okay if I just applied? I'd love meeting you if it all works out. And
I
then
think I think that's really great. I would kind of addendum to that, say that there is an upper level, especially with big companies, where they are never going to say yes to that. Because, so like, my husband is a director at a big four. When his name goes on an application, it has a totally different desk it goes to. That applicant has a different experience because somebody high enough up the food chain is saying yes. But that also means that he has a different level of involvement with people that he is referring. And I think that's true probably for most big organizations. Like, I
yeah,
don't think any of the people I know that are at sort of director level and above are ever going to say yes to that out
yeah.
off one phone call.
Yeah, no, that's important. And setting our expectations really low, but still asking, because if it is, you're right. If it's at a lower level, they're going to say yes because they have a sign-on
Yeah,
bonus. Like
why not?
it's not
Yeah,
going to it's going to get some special treatment, right? Because referrals are always kind of at the front of the line, but
sure.
it won't get such preferential treatment that like they'll ask for directly for that person's opinion. But yeah, setting our expectations low, but aiming high is totally fine. Or don't ask at all if you're like me and you would be uncomfortable with that anyways. But if you are one of those people that like feels unproductive if you haven't
Yeah.
closed the deal, there is an appropriate way to ask, and you should also keep your expectations low. And if the answer is not what you wanted, leave it alone.
Yeah. And
Right
I
away.
also I think that those people who feel the need to close a deal, like those are the bane of every interviewer's existence, because inevitably they're the ones that like found the Google result that said that in an interview, you should say, is there any reason that you wouldn't hire me based on today? And that is the worst question ever to ask an interviewer.
Yes, there's a reason, because you asked me that question.
Yeah. Yes, we were fine until that question. And now, good day, sir. Because it's the worst. It's just like, it's so aggressive as a question. And I think that like the super needy deal closers, I like calling them that. I usually call them something way more expletive than that. And I think that they really, really, especially with the modern aesthetic and kind of feel in interviews and social networking, like they've really just got to check that and dial that back. And I think that's also true for sales. Like recruitment is sales. So I've been in sales for a very long time. And since I'm older than you, Lani, my dear, I can say,
I think so.
Since you said you're not yet 40 and I'm over that.
Okay, that's just math. Okay, got it. I'm with you.
I will welcome you to the club when you join us. But so as a result, like I know that a lot of people in sales make the mistake of like that always be closing mentality, that there are bad sales classes that'll tell you that, and certainly Hollywood tells you that's a great way to sell, but reality is people hate that. And
Yeah.
those are the salespeople that they really hate, and that the correct answer is to go in and just be a consultant and answer questions and offer what you've got, and don't try to make it something that you're not. And you have to sell a fairly abstract idea in some ways with the services that you have as a business. What does that look like, especially as an introvert? And like how do you approach that? What is your sales strategy in that regard?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, as part of my job, obviously, I do have to do a lot of sales. We're a small org, so I'm tasked with a lot of that. There's an author named Matthew Pollard who writes about introversion and sales and argues that introverts make better salespeople than extroverts, actually. And to add to that, what a lot of people don't understand that are extroverted is that introversion isn't shyness. I'm not shy by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, do people give you energy as an extrovert, or do they take your energy as an introvert? That's it. Like we can all be in a room and it's hard to tell who's introvert and extrovert because, we're all spending energy on each other. But if I go to a networking event, when I'm done, I'm not even listening to music in the car on the way home. I am just driving home and decompressing because it's just too much. And then add in social anxiety. That's just a whole nother ball of wax. But my approach is we've been digital for so long that most of what I get to do is digital, but to close the bigger deals, it really does require in person, which has made things difficult. In person meetings and lunches and schmoozing and stuff like that, because if somebody's going to cut you a massive check, they really want to trust you as a person, no matter what your business is. So my focus has always been on trust building. And so that includes a lot of transparency, even when something's negative. And when you are fully transparent, people develop that trust in you. And so when I say, for example, if I send out an email, let's say I'm featuring employers and I'm telling them over email, I only have 3 spots that I'm going to do this deal for because I just need some guinea pigs, which is something we're doing right now, right? And so they know for a fact it's not some sales bullshit that I'm just making up a number to do false scarcity, that there really are only 3 spots. So if they're interested, they need to jump on it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been my approach. Is it's not super high touch, it's not in your face, but it does build on the method of being overly transparent, such that they know that when I tell them there is a scarcity or there is an urgency, they actually listen and they know that I'm being sincere with them. So
Yeah. I think I hear all of that. What is your thought on, there's a couple of different schools of thought in terms of negotiation on fees. Some people are big believers in start high and then be willing to be talked down. Other people are big believers in the fee is the fee and I don't negotiate. And if we can't do business at my fee, that makes me sad, but that's my fee. From what you've just said, I think I know the answer, but just to confirm, what is your take on it? And if the answer is what I think it is, how do you handle it when people still try to negotiate with you?
Yeah, so as you've probably guessed, I believe the fee is the fee, because if you're building transparency and you're just giving people the best price that you can at the time, then it just is what it is.
Yeah.
So if a company approaches and says, hey, let's say they want to be a featured employer, and but my budget is this or that. Sometimes there's wiggle room in like how the payment is broken out, or there's wiggle room to where like we can reduce something or whatever. But I don't go into Nordstrom and say this shirt is very expensive. I would like it
Exactly.
to be less expensive. To just get either buy or get the fuck out, like one or the other. And so, but what is very helpful to me is my husband, who started the business, has always been not just my mentor, but my biggest champion. And so, if we're sitting down looking at pricing, let's say I were to do private consulting, he would say, "You're worth $500 an hour," and I would be like, "I'm worth $5 an hour," and we we have to find some way
Yeah.
in the middle ourselves, and then that is the price. And so um, I just think that when you have a price structure, and it is, if it's flexible for friends, that's different, right? Like a friend needs a service and
Yes.
whatever, that's different. But if it's just somebody you've never met, they may be that negotiation type that they do it. I tend to invest my energy more in explaining why it's not negotiable instead of spending the time negotiating, because I feel often, I don't know why, and I'm sure there's some like psychologists that can explain it, but typically the less a client pays, no matter what it's for, they're always more demanding than somebody who has paid more, because I guess they don't, if they've paid so little, that's the value you've placed on it, and that's the value they've placed on it, and it's lower, and they're going to be more demanding and more bitchy. And so why do that? And when you're starting off, you have to often, because you have to get your foot in the door. But once the door is open, don't do that anymore. Set your prices, be firm, spend your energy explaining why the prices are the way they are, why they are so already low. And if somebody
Yeah.
doesn't want to pull the trigger, then that's on them. And it can be really disappointing when you're up against somebody who's put themselves in a contrarian position to you, because typically, if you're going to work with any client in any capacity in any business, you want to be able to connect human to human and not take advantage of each other. So if you already feel taken advantage of, that's not going to change through the process. Sometimes it's just better to walk away anyways if you want to sleep at night.
I think so. We have a lot of this in our space, as I'm sure you can imagine, because we get clients who are like, "You want to charge how much for resume? That's insane! There's a person on Thumbtack that'll do it for $50." And I'm like, "Friend, and if you want a $50 resume, go for it."
Yeah.
But I will tell you that the level of experience and expertise that you probably actually want creating your resume is going to value itself at more than $50. So,
Yeah.
like and I think so I totally feel everything that you said, because we have that a lot, especially, and I would think in your space as well, there's competition at levels of varying degrees of professionalism. And so some of the ones at the less professional end of the spectrum have correspondingly insanely cheap prices. And so that gives a weird impression to people when they go out and do research. So like there's a company that does any resume for 99 bucks. We have no resume we do for $99. None. And that's not because we think that they're horrible people, but we also know the level of care that we take into it, and we know the product that they create. And if that is the level of product that you need, then you don't need to pay me, because it's a different service. Not to speak ill of them, but it is just, like there's, if you really just need cheap calories, McDonald's is great. And if you want something that is a quality meal, then you're going to have to pay more than McDonald's, because it costs more to have that level of expertise. So I again, I completely understand and feel where you're coming from. And it is really frustrating. I guess I was sort of secretly hoping you had some like magic bullet trick for how to help customers get around that, but it sounds
Well,
like it's
and
just
part of it is trust building. So for
yeah,
example, um, I had a plumber come in and do something really simple, and I could totally do it myself, but I didn't want to break it. And I was confiding him in that because I felt shame for having I felt shame for having the plumber here because I'm very DIY. Like I like to do all the stuff hands on. Like I was raised in a house with a dad and a brother, and I'm very much like it's almost shameful to not do your own things, right? So um, he was here and I was kind of joking with him over this 5 minute procedure because I was like, I know I could have done this, dude. And I feel embarrassed that I called you. And fortunately it's warranty work. So like we don't have to pay for it. But he said to me, look, he said, if there weren't certified professional plumbers that screwed up every day, I wouldn't have a job. That's the majority of my job is going in behind them and fixing it because they did a bad job because someone didn't want to pay the money. And I was like, yep, exactly. And it's the same as, and so for me, I will never hire a cheap plumber after thinking that through, right?
yeah,
And sometimes you learn the hard way. It's the same as getting a lawyer, right? Do you want somebody who wins cases or do you want a lawyer just so that you can say you have a lawyer? And which is it that you want? Because you're going to pay for one or the other, right?
yeah,
And so sometimes just even in those negotiation processes, making those comparisons and building that trust of, you're right. However, a lot of my job involves, so for example, a lot of my job involves having to go in and fix other, career coaches and resume writers work. And so you can go do that. And if that's your budget, next time when you're ready, for this, it's the
yeah.
same as hiring a lawyer. Sometimes all you can hire is what you can hire, but when you have the capacity to hire a good lawyer, there's literally no reason not to.
Yeah. So, I'm going to steal all of that, by the way, because that
Do it.
was genius. I am just going to absolutely, and I'm going to call it my own. I'm giving you no credit. So this is all the credit you're going to get. Just
Perfect.
FYI.
Because
Okay.
anybody that's thinking, I want Lonnie's job, a huge portion of what I do, especially in covering news and tips and best practices for entrepreneurs, is give them playbooks and give them talking points and like help in that way. So that's 100% part of my job. Steal, steal, steal. I'm cool with it.
Excellent. So that actually brings me to the thing I want to ask you about next. So we are living in this bizarro world time where everything people don't like gets dubbed fake news. Um, and you are in the business of news. So what do you do professionally to make sure that you are establishing yourself and standing out as not part of that problem?
Yeah, so that's a hard one because in news, like you said, if somebody doesn't like something, it's just automatically you're trash or this is fake or whatever. And
Yeah.
that's, you just get used to that. That's, part of
Yeah.
the course. But part of what our organization has done, Ben was really brilliant to come up with this move about 10 years ago. He decided, even though we really want to write about politics because we're humans in America,
Yeah.
we will only write about policy. We will not write about politics. And so if there is a policy either being introduced or changed that has an impact on a small business or an entrepreneur, we will address that. And it is, we do have old fashioned standards. And that means if you can tell what a writer's personal political slant is, that's not news, that's an editorial. And
Right.
if somebody is writing in a way that we can tell, then they're not paid for it and we don't run it because that's an editorial and you are on the news staff. And so we're not super public about that, but you can tell by reading any of the stuff that even when we write about things that could be theoretically political, it's not political in nature. And so we stay out of that lane on purpose. And
Mhm.
the reason we do that is because there are already great news organizations that are dedicated just to politics, right?
Sure.
And that's the fastest way to get called fake news is to say anything on either side of the spectrum, because then you have half of America that hates whatever you just said.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what side. And another reason that we do that, besides the fact that we want to respect our readers and not make them ever feel isolated or like anybody on our team doesn't think like them or side with them or whatever, because now we're all supposed to be at odds with whoever is on the other side,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
whatever. Um, but it limits the diversity that we can have in our own staff if we have a certain angle. And so the truth is, we have people on staff from the furthest left to the furthest right, and you'll read our news and you will not know which is which. And that's because of our own internal policies. That it's my personal policy because it's nobody's damn business, but it is our company policy because we want readers to have somewhere to go that is agnostic and it's not fake news, and we don't have any agenda other than just to help the person that's reading. And so, yeah, we get hate mail because all news does, but it's a lot less than even comparably sized news organizations.
So where with that, one of the things that is very difficult for all of us right now is where are trusted sources? And obviously you guys need even a different level of trusted source than the rest of us. So where do you go to get those trusted sources that aren't biased, that aren't already, prescribing to a certain narrative with what they're saying?
That's really hard. I think just keeping where you're consuming news from diverse in general. And one way that I personally do it is I subscribe to a newsletter called Blind Spot. And I don't remember the organization that puts it out, but just Blind Spot newsletter. You can Google it and find it. It's free. But they will show like 4 or 5 news stories that either one side totally missed or the other side totally missed. And they'll show each news organization from whatever end of the spectrum, how it was covered. And so they'll show the blind spot for the right was that, North Korea did X, Y, and Z, and nobody on the right reported that, like right-leaning organizations.
Sure.
Or for the left, it's that, the president did this policy and it was influential in this way, but nobody on the left covered it, only the right. And so just even kind of like having that in your mind, once a week or every other week, just remembering that major news organizations have a slant because that's how the bills are paid right now. And that's what it is. I would encourage people to seek out smaller news organizations because that's not what pays the bills. And organizations like ours have chosen to actually forego some big chunks of money in an effort to remain ethical and be able to sleep at night. And so, whatever your industry is, just finding the bloggers in that space, or, just really kind of keeping it mixed up of where you consume news from. So.
Okay. I think that's good advice. And your writers, do they get their information straight from APN, or like when they are writing a story, where does their draw?
Yeah, so our process is a little different than a traditional newsroom. I handle all assignments and they get to choose from different assignments. And so since they're all freelance and they have, other writing assignments that they're constantly working on, they can kind of come and go as they please and pick from what's interesting. Because if we have them and we say, you're writing about this, well, they may not really have a vested interest in that. And they may write something that's dry or boring. So we let them kind of pick. So it's all filtered through me. And so, no one in public would really know kind of what my leanings are anyways. And so really the goal is to have a diversity of information going out to where anybody can open the main page and say, okay, that looks interesting, or, ooh, that might help my business, and not have to wade through all the political stuff that they already are bombarded with elsewhere.
So on the political front, tomorrow, the world changes, ostensibly.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things being talked about, suggested, maybe going to happen, maybe not going to happen. Everything from returning to the DOL changes that Obama put in that were immediately canceled, and 1,000 other things that would really impact your readers and demographic. Pick one or two that you think that's the one to watch, that is going to be the big change for entrepreneurs and small business.
That's a good question. And so this might actually be a little more revealing than I like. I actually kind of think it's all bullshit. And
okay.
I think that a lot of politics tends to be theater, and
Yes.
no matter who's in charge and who's not in charge. And so I would say that nothing that happens in the next month is trustworthy. They can, like HR1, for example, was so packed full of so many things that it's almost like somebody running for class president in high school and saying, and we're going to have a Coke machine in every room and everybody's going to get back rubs at lunch. And like, okay, let's get fucking real here. Like,
yeah,
none of that's going to happen. Some of it will. But so I would advise anybody who's stressed right now to just take a breather and revisit in about 30 days. Because I think the first couple weeks of any presidency do establish some changes, but a lot of changes can be undone really quickly, and there could be huge fights from both sides. And so I think just not stressing is the biggest thing I can say to anybody, because we're going to have a lot of theater from both sides for the next month. And then once people realize it's not the end of the world, regardless of who the president is, like, it's going to be fine, you guys. And so things will change. They'll always change, but I don't think that any specific change is so consequential right now that's on the table that anybody should really be losing sleep. So maybe that was more revealing about my personal politics than it should have been.
No, actually, I am still intrigued. I can't tell quite which side of the aisle that you're on. So no, you're doing well, and maintaining the mystery there. So what have we not covered? Because I feel like we've done the whole thing from your personal life, missing your daughter. Introverts are the best. We covered that one pretty thoroughly. We've done some politics. Obviously we are. What have we missed out? What do you?
Okay, I can think of one. When you hear somebody is C-level of anything, no matter the size of the business, whether it's small or large, you don't necessarily know kind of what their lane is, right? And so they're a leader, and that's it. But I actually identify as somebody who is typically in the Marcom world, and at the root, I'm a writer. I don't get to write very much, but if I could retire tomorrow, it would be to go live in a cabin and somewhere far, far away with no internet, and just have a typewriter and just bang out weird novels and stuff. And I don't
genre, bodice rippers, sci-fi.
I actually have thought about doing like a pen name and writing just weird monster porn, because I have a friend who does that and makes so much money. And I'm like, why am I not, like, I would be good at that. That would be like disgusting and amazing. And so I don't know. We'll see.
Self-published Kindle monster porn for real.
We'll see how pervy I am when I'm retired. So I don't know yet. Ask me later. But I would share that anybody who's looking at my career path going, oh my God, what even is this? I do identify in Marcom. I identify as a writer, and a lot of people don't think, especially when they're younger or they're thinking of a career pivot, that you can have a stupid major and do something with it. And so I'm an English lit major, which is shorthand for I speak English good. I'm just going to do this and get out of college, like whatever, just get out of college. And so I think that it's important for people to know that it doesn't really matter what your background is. It matters what you make of it and how you can position it. And so if I needed to go get a different job tomorrow, God forbid, I could probably pitch myself for whatever that was. And if it's, let's say it's development, I don't do any development, but I could go to a boot camp, show that portfolio, and show how I've been a strong end user, which has given me, right? Which has given me the perspective needed that many developers are often missing, or just, whatever bullshit.
Sure. Yeah.
That, finding a path, there is no such thing as a linear path.
No.
And I'm actually really suspicious of people that like did the thing that they said they were going to do as a child and then studied it all through childhood and then college, and then went and did it after college and are still doing it. And that's what they're going to do to retire. Like, that's some like 1950s level shit, right? That doesn't exist. And it's amazing. But I'm always like, wait, how did you do that? Because I want your job.
So my husband is one of those people, I will tell you. And it's because the only thing that he particularly enjoys doing in life is computers. And so,
we say Legos. I was really hoping you were going to say Legos.
No, sadly, no, he collects retro video games. We have every video game console ever made.
Nice.
No, not nice.
Yeah, that's cool.
So many we have. Oh my gosh. And he doesn't play any of them. They're just here. But so he is one of these people that he's English, and in the English educational system, after 16, you don't have to study things you're not interested in. And so, yeah. And so he hasn't taken an English class since he was like 13. None of the great books has he ever read. He was unfamiliar with the term canon until It was not too long ago. The other day, we were joking about something, and he was like, "I don't understand why canons are involved with this." And I was like, "No, the literary canon, honey." So yeah, no idea. Like it's been computers. Now, technology, as you know, is like such a huge umbrella that there's 1,000 things involved with that.
Yeah.
That from the moment he realized he needed to get a job, it was always he wanted to do a job related to computers, and none of that part has changed
Yeah.
at all. So I think that, there are people who very broadly that's the case, but even within the technology sector, he certainly doesn't have a linear arc. It's
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
as much luck as judgment, like the rest of us, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it's rare today that somebody says, I want to do auto body work. And they go and they study that and they go do that. And that's what they do until they retire. Because inevitably they realize I can do body work and flip these cars. And now I have a dealership. Like,
Yeah.
so most people don't stay on the linear path. But, of course, some do. And especially for mental health reasons, for some people, it is better to just choose their path and stay there. But I would suggest that anybody looking at my career path or anybody's career path to not look at it and go, I could never do that. I could never end up where you are. Well,
Yeah.
sure you can. It's just iteration after iteration. That's how careers work now.
And that, if I want to be Lonnie, step one, get the same degree. Like that's not a good step one. Like you
And
can
don't take my path. Literally, don't take my path. Do the
It's
opposite
a
of
terrible
my
idea. Well, that is all the time we have. So thank you so much. You have been an absolute delight. And I have learned things that I'm stealing, and I have faith that job seekers will be able to do the same. So thank you very much.
Thank
Big
you for having
takeaways.
me. You're a great host, and I felt very comfortable. So thank you so much.
I think it's our mutual love of humor and profanity that probably saw us through any tough moments. So I think that we were fine. So thank you so much. And we will have all of the contact details and links and everything for websites, Facebook groups, all of the above for people to be able to find in the show notes. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye. You've been listening to Hey, I Want Your Job. For more information on how you can get your own awesome job, visit ONH Consulting at www.onhconsulting.com. We offer incredible resumes, no-nonsense career advice, and real-world tips for landing a job in today's market. Check us out on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Insta for more insider information. Soon, you'll be hearing us say, I'm Michelle Olivier, and hey, I want your job.